Hey guys, Ju-Len here, and I got a quick question for you. If you're like me, rapidly approaching the age of 50, what visible signs of aging have you noticed? I'm talking about things like grey hair, or worse, missing hair, or maybe something like needing a huge font for your mobile phone? Or how about worse, the sudden urge to buy a Mercedes coupe? Although, just look at this thing. I mean, does that look like a car for this guy? This is the Mercedes CLE, and just look at this thing. I'm going to get up close and personal with it, fondle its interior, drive it around for a little bit, and at the end of the video, I'm going to find out how practical it is. So stick around, let's check it out together. Oh, at first, all of you uncles are going to need to find something else to drive. Go buy a Volvo, or maybe a Jaguar. So what we have here is the CLE 200. Elsewhere you can get a diesel or a lovely 6-cylinder engine, but here it's a 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol turbo with mild hybrid drive. And that's it for now, Singapore. But you do get 2 trims to consider. Prices start at 341,888 for the CLE 200 Avant-Garde, and then there's this, the sporty AMG line for 367,888. Now that you've heard the prices, I'm sure you're thinking very hard about just one thing. What the hell is a CLE? Well, it's a bit complicated, but there used to be a C-Class coupe as well as an E-Class coupe, and this car actually replaces both of them. But if you go back 20 years, there used to be a Mercedes CLK, and to me this is the spiritual successor to that car, because like that car, this is kind of an in-between. It's more plush than a C-Class and more agile and sporty than an E-Class, as well as being slightly cheaper. Another way to think of this car is as a rival to BMW's 4 Series Coupe, which is actually quite a bit cheaper here, although the Mercedes is longer and a teeny bit wider. And when it comes to coupes, proportion is everything, and this Mercedes has this long, low silhouette that makes it look like a torpedo, and not to mention a wide stance that makes it look well planted and stable. Okay, I am not a tall man, but look at how low this car is. It's your classic low-slung, sporty coupe. But let's have a closer look at some of the styling features. Okay guys, first thing, I don't really know what to make of this over here. I mean, powerful cars need a lot of air, right? So it's nice to have a bit of black here to look like air vents. But these are solid, so they look nice, but they're kind of fake. So essentially, they're like a push-up bra. But you do have an eye-catching and star-studded grille, and it's slanted forward like a shark nose. Remember when BMW used to do that? But these power domes are very Mercedes. They've been doing that for 70 years now. That's how iconic these are. This car is an AMG line, so it comes with rather tasty 20-inch wheels and slightly larger brake calipers in front, although you can't actually see them because of the wheel design. This particular car seems to have the night package, so it's got high gloss black everywhere. So the front grille's fins have high gloss black, the wing mirror of course, and the windowsills all high gloss black. Well, you get the idea. Oh, and while I'm here, I want to show you one more thing. This window is frameless, of course, but there is still a B-pillar over here, and that's not very classically Mercedes, is it? I mean, I can imagine all the older, more purist guys now shouting at their screens going, "Was? Nein, nein, nicht gut, nicht gut." But you know what? I bet you this makes the car a little bit lighter, a little bit stronger, and a little bit safer, so whatever, I'll take it. Okay, over at the back, I just want to point out 2 things. Well, okay, 3 things. The first is that you've got this nice plastic element over here that links the lamps, but the lights themselves don't actually connect. I mean, I don't really know why they stopped over here. Maybe they wanted to give themselves something to do for the facelift. Whatever it is, I'm sure you've noticed the front of the car is very aggressive, but it's actually quite delicate back here. The second thing I want to point out is more fakery. I mean, I would never burn myself on these exhausts because they're not exhausts. So what's going on with these things? I really don't know. I mean, they look really nice, but if you ask me, I think it's a cost-saving thing because you don't have to route the exhaust pipes all the way out to these ends. You just have to make it look nice. And I think the wider point here is that Mercedes is probably no longer the money, no object company that it used to be. And finally, just one last thing. Ooh, nice tail fin over here. What was I saying? Oh yeah, okay, I'm sure you've noticed there's a little bit of a forward slant over here. It's just a subtle thing, but it makes the car look like it's just raring to go, and it makes me feel like just jumping in to drive. So what am I waiting for? By the way, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. We are a new channel and it would really help me out. Go on, be a good guy. Thanks a bunch. Okay, let's talk about first impressions here, guys. This feels very typically Mercedes, so it's very refined. It feels actually very solid. But I have to say, sometimes I actually hear quite a bit of noise from the tires. But I think I would give the suspension an A- or maybe even an A. It is very firmly sprung, but it isn't uncomfortable. And this car has 20-inch wheels, but it doesn't feel horrible. So let me just talk about the engine a little bit. You've got a 2-litre turbo with 204 horsepower, 320 Newton meters. So there's not a lot of firepower under the bonnet, but you know, this car 0 to 100 is decently quick, 7.4 seconds. But I tell you what, when you're just bobbing along and you step on the gas, you can actually feel the hybrid system chipping in to kind of give this car an extra boost, and that really helps with your day-to-day acceleration. Oh, I do want to say that this 9-speed gearbox is a little bit lazy sometimes, so it shifts a bit slowly, but you can override it with these classic flappy paddles behind the steering wheel and pretend you're a Formula 1 driver. So yeah, or I tell you what you can do, you can just engage the sport mode, and that of course makes the transmission more responsive, but it actually turns up the noise, or the artificial noise on the engine, and it's a little bit more exciting that way. Okay, let's talk about the handling a little bit. Now, this is a wide car and it does feel like it, but I tell you what, the steering is actually pretty quick and it's actually pretty precise, so it's not so hard to place the car exactly where you want it. And when you're on a slightly twisty road, I think it is possible to have fun and just enjoy yourself. This is never going to be a hot hatch though. I think it's too big and too heavy for that. But I tell you what, I will say that I think the chassis is talented enough to handle a lot more power. So imagine if this car had, say, more than 350 horsepower. I think that would be pretty sweet. And remember, I think what Mercedes tried to achieve in this car is that they wanted something a little bit sharper than the old E-Class coupe. And if that was the goal, I think they really nailed it. Okay, I tell you what though, when you do find yourself on the highway and the road kind of straightens up and opens up, well, this really is the place to be, especially if you have hours and hours of driving ahead of you. I mean, the cabin is kind of intimate, but it's not claustrophobic, and these seats are actually super comfortable. And this car, you know, was just built to do hours and hours on the Autobahn, and it was just made to munch mile after mile, kilometer after kilometer, and just deliver you to your destination in perfect shape to put on your black tie and attend the charity ball like the rich Mercedes dude that you are. Part of the reason you can spend all day in here is that, well, it's just also easy on the eye. I mean, it's all soft curves everywhere and nice materials. Oh, Paul McCartney, look away now because this is genuine leather in the AMG line. And of course, nobody does ambient lighting like Mercedes, right? So at night, all these lighting zones come alive and you can customize them and it all looks great and you can have it exactly the way you like it. To a certain extent, the same goes for the 12.3-inch driver display. That's customizable as well, although not nearly enough for me. I mean, there's a classic display, which doesn't look all that classic. It's still very modern looking to me. I want something a bit more old-timey. But there is, if you want something more funky, the sport mode, and when you do that, it gets all kinds of crazy, and it actually even changes the skin of the MBUX system. I'm sure you've noticed that this dashboard is straight out of the C-Class, so like that car, you've got a couple of cup holders here, as well as quite a deep tray for your mobile phone for wireless charging. Let's see, of course, between the front seats, you've got a decent amount of room, and thank goodness for that. But I do want to show you something new. So you've got the 11.9-inch screen from the C-Class and its portrait style, and I just want to say I really love how they've placed it over here and slanted a bit so that it's easy to see and easy to use, and that leaves space up here for the aircon vents where they should be. So this runs MBUX 3, which is the latest software, and Mercedes says it has a zero-layer principle. That means, I guess, well, the main thing is the navigation screen over here, but you also have these modules down here, which are kind of like the dock of your Mac, so you can dismiss it, and if you want to call it back up, it's just like your Mac really, and it's going to show you your media as well as your phone, and then other modules that I think the car will suggest to you because you use them more often. So of course you can expand each one as you use them. And oh, of course, let me just start the engine so I can show you this part. As before, the climate controls are always here, so you don't have to go into a menu to set up the aircon. Thank goodness for that. Another thing with the zero layer system is that if you press and hold the home screen, you can actually choose a more tile-based system. So this makes it look a little bit more like a mobile phone, and it's basically a whole bunch of icons that you can click if you prefer. I do want to talk to you about some things I don't like about this car. This steering wheel, it looks nice, but man, these touch-sensitive controls, they're really fiddly to use, and it's very hard to get precisely what you want, and they collect fingerprints like crazy. And I actually have my reservations about the cabin. I mean, this is straight out of a C-Class, and although it is quite nice up here, in terms of material, you do get to some cheaper plastics when you come to the lower part of the cabin. I also have my doubts about this material over here. It's printed plastic. I think it's got metallic trim or something. I'm more of a wood kind of guy, but you know, just look at this closely. I mean, you can get away with it in a Mercedes, but honestly, if this were in a Chinese or Korean car, would you find it nice? So let's talk about practicality for a moment. I cannot, of course, tell you if this car will suit your lifestyle, but I can show you that it has 420 litres of space back here. What does that mean? Well, let me show you with a bit of random luggage I found by the side of the road here. Of course, the opening is the thing, isn't it? So it's never going to get in like this, but you can see this is fairly thick and it just about make it through this opening here. But let me see, I have room, I think maybe not for another one of these, but something a bit smaller. The thing is, there is a bit of a sill here to clear, so when you take it out, you're going to want someone with a bit of muscle to help you out, and you just want to make sure that you don't end up scratching this lovely bumper over here. Oh, and by the way, if you do need more space, you can actually fold the rear seats, and if you want to do that from here, you can. You just have to do it like this. Oi, move your ass. Oh, okay. Okay, I've been dreading this, so I put it off to the end, but the CLE is supposed to be a four-seater, so it's time to check out the two chairs in the back to see if they violate the Geneva Convention. Okay guys, I will try not to flash you as I get in, so wish me luck. It all starts with, you pull a little tag over here and tip the seat forward, and of course it moves forward for you electrically. So let's put my spine to the test now and see how we get on. Okay, a bit of a low roofline to clear, but otherwise, once you're back in here, it's not too bad. You do have some nice materials, a little speaker, a little bit of cheap plastics here for this little tray over here, but I have to say, aircon vents, that's a must-have. I have got a decent amount of knee room, that's my driving position. But if I sit up all the way, well, my head actually does touch the ceiling or the roof liner. I kind of feel like the BMW 4 Series Coupe actually has a bit more space back here. And I think on a long drive, I might sort of start to feel a bit resentful. But I think for short drives in Singapore, it should be okay. And again, it all boils down to your needs, right? Like if you gave birth to a whole football team or basketball team, then this really is not going to be the car for you. So would I give the CLE 2 thumbs up or 2 thumbs down? Well, the 200 gets a thumbs up from me and a thumbs down. Let's do the thumbs down bit first. I think this car should get a nicer interior. It's all very jolly inside, but the cabin of the CLE 200 kind of leans too close to the C-Class for my liking. I do remember the previous E-Class Coupe had a very stately and elegant interior, and that is something I would wish for a car like this. Second of all, I think it deserves a nicer engine. I mean, this one is fairly sophisticated, but it's just not very charismatic. And I think, well, why not a CLE 300 or even better, a 6-cylinder CLE 450 for Singapore? Come on, you know you want one. That one gets from 0 to 100 in 4.4 seconds. And I think an engine like that is a better match for a car that looks like this. Okay, and the thumbs up part is easy. There is the long distance comfort, but at the end of the day, come on, just look at this thing. I mean, it's so seductive and it's sporty without being ostentatious. And you know what? This is an expensive car, but I think it does look like an expensive car. And if you're gonna be a rich mofo, well, you may as well buy a Mercedes and look like a rich mofo. Hey guys, that's my quick and dirty look at the new Mercedes CLE. If there's something you want to know about this car or other cars in Singapore, I've left my contact details below. Drop me a line and I'll try to help you out. For now, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. See you again.